could you potentially make dried basil or dried bay leaves in your house in a resident, assuming you could get the license for your kitchen, a residential kitchen? Anyone? I can't see my chat. Can you see my chat? Oh, here we go. So if you put in the chat or show of hands, can you make a dried spice or leaf herb in your kitchen? Anyone want to take a stab? Thanks, Brent. Yes. Yep. So generally speaking, if we wanted to make a dried herb, this is considered a very low risk product, and we can use air or light heat drying to flush off that moisture using then it's no longer what we call potentially hazardous. And you can likely make that in your kitchen. But what about sun-dried tomato? Anyone want to guess? Yes, no, maybe so. Yeah, okay, the crowd's saying maybe, no. And I'm going to give you a terrible answer. I'm going to say, I'm also going to say maybe and no. So we say maybes because when we have this whole fruit, as soon as we open it, it changes the surface area and opens up the insides. And so here in the state of Massachusetts, we can't operate in a residential kitchen for that type of product, simply because we had cut it open, and opening that surface area increases our food safety risks. But there are some different rules within different states that you might be able to cut that open and then dry it where it would then be no longer potentially hazardous until you could produce it. So I too would say it's a maybe. But the point a couple points I want to make here is seeing that different foods have different risk factors and different processing rules that you as the entrepreneur, if you're going to start to embark on making value-added products, you have to you have to first know the rules of the game, and it's driven by the food type that you're making. Okay, so let's try one more. So what about blueberry jam? What's the jam? Can you make that in your house in a residential kitchen with a commercial license, residential license to produce for commercial sale? Yes, no, maybe? Yes. Generally speaking, the sugar and the canning operation, that hot fill and hold, we can often make this product. While it's still shelf stable, we are using sugar and the heat step, and that is often or widely acceptable practice to be used in residential kitchens. Okay, the final one I have for today. What about this? This is a acidified shelf stable salsa. Can I make this in my residential kitchen? Sorry, I can't see if it was made before or after salsa. I'm going to ask you to put it in here after salsa. Salsa at home? Yes, no, maybe? Thanks, Mardine. What about you, Brett? So this one is also a maybe. Okay, so in the state of Massachusetts and Indiana and in California, you're not allowed to process these types of products at home. And to the point that Brent's making in the chat, he says that they're saying, I'm assuming you have to be able to measure the acidity. And so, yes, when we're making products like this one, an acidified shelf-stable food, there's a couple key components to making it safe. And in particular, it's making sure that the pH is well below 4.6, and the actual target of that level of pH depends on the food, plus the container that it's being processed in. and the additional thermal process. So there's a few contributing factors that most states or many states don't allow you to process that in a residential kitchen. However, there are some cottage laws that let you do that. So for example, Maine and Vermont, they do allow acidified shelf-stable foods to be processed in your home, okay? But again, as I mentioned before, the thing I want you is if you're dabbling or exploring in the world of value add, understanding that different foods have different regulations, and it's driven largely by the food safety risks associated with that. Canning, as you might know, is a tried and true operation, but they have to be done with certain regulations. And so the risk factors within the states drive how this one is used. So to kind of illustrate this point a little bit further, I just wanted to show this slide here is to highlight that across the country, we do have cottage laws, which is where you can use your home kitchen to get a license to sell and produce as a wholesale license for certain commodities. But as you can see here, the different states have different rules. So again, I stick with Massachusetts because it's one that I work with, I know that one. But in Massachusetts, we're very conservative about not being able to do a variety of products. And basically here in our state, you can make non-potentially hazardous dried foods or shelf-stable foods. So things like baked goods and brownies, jellies, jams, chocolates, spice blends. That's kind of the realm that we're playing. Whereas in some states, like in Indiana, you can actually sell meat if it's personally raised at your house. So again, the rules are very different depending on which state you're in.